unfortunately, I have to tell you about yet another horrible bill it looks like has passed Congress. Last Monday, the House passed it, and on Thursday, the Senate passed it as well. It's being called a Trespass bill. It is House Resolution 347, at least obviously on the House side. And by the way, it passed 388 to 3. So here we go, again, bipartisan agreement on atrocious things taking away our civil liberties. It reads really bad right now. It's Section 1752 says that whoever knowingly enters or remains in a restricted building or grounds without lawful authority to do so is doing something that is wrong and illegal and can be punished up to 10 years. Okay, now, that's just the first part, and you might say, well, that doesn't sound too bad, okay? If you're illegally entering a building, well, that is obviously illegal. I agree with that. That's not the bad part. But then they make it broader and broader. So A2 of Section 1752 reads, or knowingly and with intent to impede or disrupt the orderly conduct of government business or official functions, engages in disorderly or disruptive conduct in or within such proximity to any restricted building or grounds when or so that such conduct in fact impedes or disrupts the orderly conduct of government business or official functions. Now, do you see why that is terribly broad? Because now you're just talking about kind of disrupting and being disorderly anywhere near a government building. So the White House, not that you are actually trespassing in the White House, that's illegal and obviously is illegal, right? That's the first part. The second part is if you're being disorderly anywhere near the White House or the Capitol. Now, wait a minute. People do protests around the White House and the Capitol all the time, and they are quite often disruptive. That's called the First Amendment. So that's dangerously broad. But when you talk about restricted buildings, because it was supposed to be about buildings, right? And you get to Section C of this bill, it gets much worse. In this section, the term restricted buildings or grounds means any posted, cordoned off, or otherwise restricted area, including A, of the White House or its grounds or the Vice President's official residence or grounds. So far they're talking about actual grounds and buildings. Good, okay, at least that's a little narrow. But we go on to B and C. B, of a building or grounds where the President or other person protected by the Secret Service is or will temporarily be visited. Or C, of a building or grounds so restricted in conjunction with an event designated as a special event of national significance. So let's talk about B and C. All of a sudden, it's not just the White House anymore, it's wherever the President or anyone receiving Secret Service travels to. So if you want to protest the President, which is the most American thing you can do, it is the most cherished right we have in this country, First Amendment rights to, protest the government. Well, if the President is traveling anywhere and he's giving a speech and you're going to do a protest and they view it to be disruptive or disorderly, whatever that means, you're done. It's illegal. They can lock you up for it now if the President signs it. So far, it's passed the House and the Senate. That sounds really bad. I hope I'm not misinterpreting this, but as you see in the plain language of this, it's terrible. And by the way, you know who else has Secret Service protection? Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney, the leading Republican candidates, get Secret Service protection. So now if you say anything disruptive in front of Mitt Romney or Rick Santorum, illegal, you can go to jail for it. Depending on, how this is interpreted, it could be a fine, it could be imprisonment of not more than 7 years, but if you do significant bodily injury, it's more. But of course, if you do significant bodily injury, that's wildly illegal anyway. Obviously, that part we would agree with. But the part that is the problematic part is being disruptive at a politician's event. That's what happens all the time in America, or used to happen. So this would be a very, very troublesome bill.
Well,
Secondly,
Cenk, I'm sorry.
One last thing, Jay. The third part of that, C, is any national security event. You know what has been designated as national security events in the past? The Super Bowl. I'm not kidding. And for good reasons, possibly. Look, it's a big security event, the Super Bowl. You got to make sure it's secure. But since it's a national security event, under this law, well, if you're disorderly at the Super Bowl, you might be arrested. And look, if we're talking disorderly conduct that is illegal anyway, then you don't need this law. What I'm worried about is something that they call disruptive at one of these political or apparently non-political events. And by the way, the conventions, Democratic convention, Republican convention, are definitely national security events. Hence, if you're disruptive around them at all, in other words, you're speaking out against them, congratulations, that if this is signed by the president, will become illegal, and there goes the First Amendment. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, I guess explain how it is right now. Because, I mean, I think, at least in my mind, and probably in a lot of people's minds, they think if they go to a certain proximity to the president or an elected official or someone running for office, they're going to get hemmed up like this. And people can almost expect it. How much different is this really than it is right now?
Well, that's the problem with these bills, because they get broader and broader. I mean, if you go and in some way attack the president, of course you're going to be arrested, and you should be arrested. Everybody agrees with that, whether it's President Obama or President Bush. Wildly unacceptable, or any politician, okay? The problem is when you write a bill so broad that if anybody who is quote-unquote disruptive anywhere near a politician that has Secret Service protection or anywhere near a political event can be arrested and imprisoned, well, that goes way, way too far.